hear me? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Yusuf Al-Kadi, and I'm really excited to give you guys this TED Talk about diversity. Now, like some of you in the audience, I don't know if there's any students in the audience, I'm a student. And as students, I'm sure we've all received the same boring, stereotypical rundown on diversity. Whether it's been from like a parent or a teacher or wherever it's from. And I'm sure in the same talk, we've all been told like roughly the same thing. To love and accept each other no matter what, because it's what's best. And don't get me wrong, I agree with this take on diversity. However, I feel there's so much more in discussing it as students. Now, I'm here to talk to you as a student that received the same spiel repeatedly throughout high school. Now, for my junior and senior years of high school, I was fortunate enough to go to independent day school, thanks to my dad. And this experience in independent day school, the community there was healthy, accepting, and welcoming almost immediately. One thing that I did notice though when I got there were the weekly diversity and inclusivity meetings that were mandatory for every student. You know, in these meetings we talked about cultures and celebrities and events and whatever's going on in the world. This, along with our Student-Led Diversity Alliance, was like torture. And in these meetings, I thought it was so meaningless, you know, because in my small class of 81, we had students from every race, color, and creed, a strong international student population, and a lot of healthy mingling and intergroup relations. And my small class of 81 spent every time together, from football games to movie nights. And so, sitting in those little diversity alliance meetings, I thought to myself, what were we even benefiting from? And would a community like mine be replicated in any other everyday high school? Now, I feel like it's time that it's really important to answer these questions. As of 2014, this is the first time in the United States where the K-12 population has become less than 50% Caucasian. The U.S. Department of Education pulled a report on this nation's state of diversity, both racial and socioeconomic, and we find that DEI measures have been stalled or declined in more than 22 states or in public institutions. Now, despite these setbacks, a lot of these underimproved communities have made big strides in improving their diversity. It's just a matter of action. Now, firstly, I'd like to establish why diversity even matters. Diverse schools have been proven to lead to higher test scores, improve critical thinking, problem solving, and communication between all cultural groups. The National Center of Education and Statistics has reported that schools in the higher diversity index yield a 10 to 15% increase in math and test scores reported their non-diverse counterparts. Achievement gaps, which tells us a lot about a school, take into account socioeconomic disparities, race, language, and other variables. They can tell us a lot about a school's environment. We know that achievement gaps steeply fell in the 70s and 80s when a lot of diversity initiatives came into action. Also, we know that when integration became more widespread, achievement gaps tell us a lot more about research when conducting that. Achievement gaps can tell us career paths, health outcomes, or other variables when talking about diversity. Achievement gaps can also break down intergroup relations by comparing different social disparities between races. The bright side of this issue is that we know that with proper school culture and action, we can tackle these issues head on. And there are several reasons as to why diversity may not be progressing as much as we want to in our schools. And I'd like to talk to you about that. The first one I'd like to talk about is lack of federal funding. And this is a big one. There have been many federal funded diversity initiatives that have been died off way too soon after installment. And one I'd like to talk about is FIPSE. FIPSE, which is a program in 1972, was a federal funded program that provided students with money to go pursue degrees after they had finished their post-secondary education. FIPSE for 26 years provided students with grants to pursue licenses, degrees, and certifications. 26 years after providing licenses, degrees, and certifications, FIPSE was killed off, and FIPSE is one of the many diversity initiatives that didn't live too long after its installment. Now, the biggest push in diversity was in the 1970s and 80s, well after the fight for civil rights, or any of that. The Immigration Act of 1965, which allowed a mass amount of immigrants in the country based on different established priorities, fueled the idea of a decaying national identity. This influx of immigrants in the country played hand in hand with the Bilingual Education Act of 1968. The act basically tended to students of immigrant status and helped schools establish bilingual programs within itself. It helped schools integrate into the school culture, establish better bilingual programs like Spanish. We have like Spanish, Chinese. There was a lot more options back then. Just in 2002, though, the Bilingual Education Act was merged with a bigger umbrella program, and the focus on bilingualism was shortened, and the support for a lot of these immigrant communities was diminished. Now, aside from this issue, one notable one I'd like to discuss is lack of planning. And this one is very personal to me, actually. I come all the way from Marietta, Georgia, and I went to a school actually before my independent day school called North Cobb High School for International Studies. Now, North Cobb was one of the many Cobb County magnet school, new ways to invigorate the community. North Cobb was a school within a school, along with other magnet schools. Basically, a magnet school takes a school's base curriculum and chooses one or two programs to specialize in. And it can be anything. Like, I've seen some crazy ones. The one, such as STEM, international studies, public policy, those are the big ones. Now, when creating a magnet school was really not so easy. Creating a diverse socioeconomic environment takes a lot of work and essentially requires an economic roadmap, which can take support from the federal, local, or state government even. And North Cobb High School for International Studies, along with its 6 other magnet schools, opened its doors in the year 2000. Any student in the metro Atlanta area could become a magnet student, just like me. All they had to do was apply. North Cobb opened its doors in the year 2000, just an astonishing 20 years after the development was even proposed. Which, 20 years is a lot in terms of education, I'll say that. Now, aside from these 2 issues, the main one I'd like to discuss is lack of implementation. And this one digs the deepest, and I like to call this one the why. Now, I'd like to point a specific instance in the 80s and 90s. The Department of Education deemed to get to the nitty-gritty of public schools and their impact on immigrant relations. And their conclusion, every school should aim for multicultural education, which I'm not going to give you a whole spiel about what that is, but multicultural education basically means preparing students and giving them the skills to interact with different cultural groups and different backgrounds. Multicultural lesson plans taking a lot of celebratory aspects like different heritage months and things like that. And there's a clear derivative of multiculturalism, which I'm not going to get into very deeply, but it's basically the view that different cultures, races, and ethnicities should be viewed as such in their differences they share. Now, there are a multitude of examples of this working. I had to research and the pleasure of doing so. So I'd like to provide you a couple examples of multicultural education working, such as Miramont Elementary School in Clovis, California. When I did my research on Miramont, I was astonished. It ran deep. They created a whole language arts program that dug deep into multiculturalism and instilled it in each and every student. They created a teacher development plan, a lesson plan, all of that aligned with multiculturalism, and it's working really well. Very high retention rate. Another example I'd like to highlight is Linden Hill School, who I actually had the pleasure of talking to an alumni from. They're a progressive school, and Linden Hill School aligns its lesson plan, community service projects, and language arts progress with multiculturalism, and it's working out pretty well, that's all I have to say. And this even works on a larger scale, such as the Harford County Schools in Maryland, where Mr. Maday's from. They're along with their 55 schools, they've woven together a teacher development plan, curriculum, and an international program that aligns with multiculturalism. Their education as a multicultural approach has been widely successful in discussing things like prejudice or racism or anything like that. And we know that with the proper resources from the community, multicultural education can work in any environment. It's just a matter of change. Now, with all this in mind, I know it's a lot, it's important to remember that any school can get students from all around the globe and say that they have a successful, diverse student body. However, I like to challenge that notion. I don't think it's that simple. Creating a successful, diverse student body requires the meticulous integration of students and teachers alike, along with the celebration and representation of both. Without inclusive lesson plans, representation, and celebration, it's really the future for diversity in schools could be a bleak one. Failure to do so, we're missing out on enrichment from students and teachers alike. None that I've seen. And as I look back at my school, I get joy in knowing that I had a school that cared so much about diverse integration and took it with utmost care. See, our nation is inherently unique. We grow more diverse as each day goes on, which I feel is why it's so important to handle diversity with utmost care. The practices used in my small class of 81 were successful and set up me and my classmates for success, which I feel why is so important to expand these on any other school. And I was asked to brag a little bit about my classmates and talk about, so I have a couple examples of my school working, such as my friend Drew. I asked Drew, what did our school provide you with that helped succeed so much? And he said, it provided him with the skills necessary to ask questions to anybody, which led him to pursue research at the junior and high school, and now Drew's currently on a full-ride scholarship to Alabama on a pre-med track. Or my friend Ben. He said our international studies program made him want to pursue public policy at Dartmouth and hopefully become a lawyer someday. And for me personally, I think our boasting STEM program and encouraging teachers allowed me to pursue physics and economics in college. See, I believe that with the proper local, state, and federal support, we can expand all these dispositions in my small class of 81, and that hopefully we can build the proper, diverse communities that we can all benefit from in the future. Thank you so much for listening.